you need to know about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. 1. It is not written by J.K. Rowling. 2. It is not a book, it is a play. And 3. It is overpriced as fuck. July 31st, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was released. It was my first Harry Potter midnight release because I was working that day, and it was exciting. Like, you could really feel the Harry Potter fever. Everyone was super excited, and I was really excited because I've never done it before because I don't like crowds, and I was really excited to have more Harry Potter in my life. I love Harry Potter. I've loved it for such a long time, and I was curious to see what was going to happen with this new play. However, as I was been hearing from other people, I can see there's a lot of like confusion about how to feel about it. And so before I get into what I think about this, I want to just clarify a few things. So as I said before, number 1, this is not written by J.K. Rowling. It says over here, based on an original news story by J.K. Rowling, which means she probably gave an outline and some notes and tweaked up some character voice issues, but this was not written by her or in her style or anything like that. And I think that that's very important to know and understand when we're going and looking at this. The other thing is that this is a play, not a actual book. It is written by Jack Thorne and directed by John Tiffany. They are putting on this show on the West End. I believe it started on the 30th of July, right before this came out. And this is the special rehearsal edition of the script. So this is not a novel. It does not have prose. It is just dialogue and some stage notes. And that's what you're getting. And on the third point of it being overpriced, it's $30, $29.99 US. And in my opinion, that is just a ridiculous amount to pay for just a script. There is no, character guides. There's no kind of background on the play or anything like that. Excuse me, like the Hamilton book, which I also have. It's $40, but it's beautifully made. It's huge. It's about this big. It's got a bunch of really good backstory about how Lin-Manuel Miranda came up with the play, came up with the musical. Dialogue, interviews. It's an experience. And if you're never going to see Hamilton or haven't got a chance to see Hamilton, it's a good way of bringing it to you, which is why I have it, because I haven't seen Hamilton because I'm a lame person. So for me, it's sort of ridiculous to pay $30 for just a script, because it's only doing that because it's Harry Potter. And honestly, I truly believe that if it was up to J.K. Rowling herself, this would be free, because I don't think she's that greedy. But I think that Scholastic and other people knew that this would be a good opportunity to make money, because it's advertised as the 8th story, 19 years later. And I think that for any Harry Potter fan, young or old, major or not, that's a big draw. And when you set up expectations that high and you make people believe that this is the next piece of Harry Potter story, you're setting them up to believe something that you're not going to deliver. And that was my issue with the marketing. As for the play itself, what do I think about it? I actually like it quite a bit. I think, considering the medium that it is of a play, it does a lot. It has great emotional journeys. I think the story is interesting well enough, and I think that it fulfills me in a lot of ways of what I wanted to see in the Harry Potter epilogue that was not in the Harry Potter epilogue. So, the major story in this is kind of twofold. It's both an emotional arc, and then there's the regular just plain narrative. So the emotional arc is the conflict between Albus Severus Potter, the youngest Potter boy, and his father Harry, and the disconnect they feel in their relationship. Albus is a Slytherin. He is not athletic. He is just not the quintessential Potter child, and having inherited all of his father's legacy, it has isolated him and made him sort of a peripheral figure in Hogwarts. He is always being brought to attention that he's not a Potter in the truest way, because he's not a Gryffindor or an athlete. And he feels angry that his father's legacy has made such a mark on him. And he and his father don't have the best relationship because of those disconnects, because they are not on that level. And Harry himself is unable to really connect with his son and reach him in a way that he can with his other children. On the narrative level, the main story is that Amos Diggory finds out that a time turner has been recovered by some Death Eaters by the Ministry of Magic. So he wants Harry to go back in time and save Cedric Diggory's life, who was killed in the Goblet of Fire. Harry lies to Amos, says that there's no such thing exists, and Albus and Scorpius find out, and Albus comes to the realization that he wants to go back in time and save Cedric Diggory to kind of prove a point about his father and how good he is in the legacy, and trying to craft his own. So he, along with Delphi Diggory and his best friend, Scorpius Malfoy, go into the past to try and save Cedric Diggory, and plot ensues. And I think that the story itself is quite fine, actually. I think that the emotional story between Harry and Albus, I thought worked very well, because one, Harry himself has not had a healthy father figure. He never knew James. Sirius was more a best friend than a father. And Arthur Weasley was never really his dad. And of course there's always Vernon Dudley, who was obviously a terrible influence. And Harry's always better with being with people who are like himself, who like the things that he likes to do, the things that he understands. People who are outside of his bubble of understanding tend to frustrate him, and when he thinks he's on the right track or doing the right thing, he gets frustrated when people don't see what he's trying to tell them. And that was a huge part of Order of the Phoenix, and I think that this story really shows that Harry has those problems even now as an adult, connecting with his own son. He sees this boy who feels isolated and alone. He's like, oh, I can reach him, I can help him, because I know what I wanted at that age. But he does not understand that Albus is his own person and feels things differently from him. And a lot of their arguments and disconnects, while it may make Harry look bad, are genuine things that I feel are in character for him. A lot of people think that it makes him a bad father, but it reminds me a lot of the whole issue of Aang and Katara's children in The Legend of Korra, where a lot of people were angry that Tenzin and all of the children had all of these issues about their relationship with Aang, because Tenzin was the airbender, so they all spent time with him, and how they felt the disconnect between their father. But I think that's a natural thing. I mean, these are children who were brought up in these extreme circumstances and had abnormal lives. They're not going to grow up to be normal people who can just quickly acquiesce into being fathers. And so I like them taking the time to discuss those kind of issues. I'm very happy that we finally got a really good Slytherin character in the form of Scorpius Malfoy, who is the sweetest little chicken nugget. I love him so. I love him so much. It was great, because he and Albus are best friends, and the relationship is not like a carbon copy of Ron and Harry's, which I appreciated, because I was worried it's going to be like, you know, the Golden Trio again, but they very much have their own dynamic. There's this really cute part where they hug, and there's a part where like they're like, do we hug? Do we do this? And I was like, yes you do! You're the best. And they're just very cute and very genuine, and their friendship feels very natural to the story, and I feel like it's like, that's something I've always wanted to see. Like, I wanted Harry's son and one of Draco's son to be friends. Like, that to me is just so cute. And we get to see Draco plays a fairly big role in the play. We get to see him be the person I think a lot of us who are Slytherin and have liked his character and have wanted him to grow up and have made him grow up in like fan fiction and those kind of things. He is finally that person. He loves his son. He loves his wife. He wants his son to be happy. He has no problem with his friendship with Harry's son. He has not raised Scorpius to be anti-mixed blood or anything like that, because
Scorpius has a crush on Rose Granger Weasley, and I was like, thank you, J.K. Rowling. You heard my prayers. You knew what I wanted. Love you so much.
Yeah, so Scorpius is not, you know, an entitled douchebag the way Draco was, and so we finally get to see the result of everything that Draco's experienced. He actually became a better person, and we get to see him interact with the main gang, and that was all really great, because you got to see how the dynamic has changed and not changed in all this time. The main story of the whole issues with Cedric Diggory, and that, I thought that was very interesting too, because time turners have always been a very interesting thing. They're only ever brought up in, you know, and used in the third book, in Azkaban, and they're used to save Buckbeak and Sirius, and to do classes with Hermione. And I think for a lot of people the question has always been like, well, why don't you just go back and do some of these things? Like, you have the ability to do so, what's the problem? And I think that this story really talks about why that's not a good idea. And I think most of us know it's not a good idea, but it really illustrates what the issues are and how the further back in time you go, the more things become unstable and how everything bleeds into each other thing. And I really thought that was a really fun story to tell, and I think in telling it this way is really interesting, because I think as a book it would have been tedious, but I think as a play it will make all the acts kind of go up and down better. I think it makes a much more fluid stage narrative than it would as an actual prose narrative. My main complaint about this work is the lack of female characters. Rose is a minor character. She's not really part of the story at all. Hermione and McGonagall are there, but they don't really get to do much. And it's especially upsetting to see Hermione not get to do much, because for so long in the Harry Potter series, she was kind of like the sole female character that got to be strong and smart throughout the series. Later on we got Ginny and Luna, but they came in like the 5th book on. And so for so much of the story, Hermione was our main female lens, and this story doesn't really have that main female lens. And so the absence of that was very jarring to me, especially because so much of this story is about father-child relationships and that legacy that passes on from father to child. And it was upsetting to me that Hermione's legacy is not an issue as well, because Hermione is the brightest witch of her age. She's brilliant, she's smart, she's capable, she's a muggle-born minister of magic. That's a huge fucking deal. And to have Rose not really deal with any of that or not have any kind of baggage felt like a misfire to me. I feel like if you're going to do this kind of like legacy passing story, why not the child of Hermione Granger? Especially if she's also Ron's child and so inherits his petty. That to me was the biggest issue. I didn't like how Ginny really just was a mom and not really got to do anything else besides that. I'm not even a Ginny fan, but I think that's a huge mistake to not have those things happen. But I did overall really enjoy this story. I feel like there's a lot of things that are there for fans to make them happy and excite them about certain things, which makes sense in this medium. Again, because this is not a book, it does not have the ability to go wave in and out and have these long narratives in time. I mean, within the first couple of parts, like in part 1, you go through like 4 years at once of Albus and his thing at Hogwarts, because you can't really dwell on that. And that's not what the point of this is about. It's to get him to a point in his 4th year that parallels his father's 4th year, and the whole second degree thing comes to a head. And so because it doesn't spend time with everything, it can sometimes feel unfulfilling, but you have to remember that the actors who are on stage would be filling in those gaps in how they perform the role. They would be the ones making it work. In this, we kind of have to put everything together ourselves, because there is no description of anything that's going on, just like angrily, blah, 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 and that can sometimes not be fulfilling if you're trying to get deeper in, like we often do with other Harry Potter works. And so overall, there was only one thing that really disappointed me about this story, and that was kind of like a plot twist that was put towards the end. And to me, it was just like the one thing that was too fan-fiction-y. And I'll do a little spoiler portion afterwards. But that was the only thing to me that was like, I don't really think this is good. I think this is kind of very weak writing. It's very like bringing everything together. It's to have like, gasp! And it just did not work for me. But it didn't ruin the experience for me. It was just more like, I think this could have been done better. I don't really think that this was the most creative decision that could have been made. But at the same time, I have enjoyed this journey. I'm going to just push through it. Because at the end of the day, this is still like, and I think it's easy to forget, this is a children's series. And this is a series that has had high levels of maturity and fun, but it's also had very simplistic, basic narratives as well. Like, it's both. It has high level and low level entertainment in all of the books, and that's what makes it good for children and adults. And I think this one is even more trying to play that balance, because it's a different medium, it's going to have a different audience, people are going to take their kids to go see this, it's going to be very ranging in ages, and so they have to have that sort of like, it has those messages and that sadness and that high level, but there also must be something basic that people and kids can just follow and be like, oh yeah, like they can't just introduce new people randomly and be like, expect everyone to understand. It has to be people that we know and things that are easy identifiable for the audience that's going to be seeing this production. nothing can ruin Harry Potter for me. I've already ruined Harry Potter for myself, in the sense that I've like talked about it forever, I've read meta about it, I've have my own headcanons, and at this point, it doesn't really matter what J.K. Rowling says or puts out. Harry Potter exists in the world beyond just what her word of God is. And there are things that are canon that I love and things that canon I don't love, and I think that that's okay. So like for me, while I love Harry Potter, I don't love the couple she chose to end up together. I don't like some of the narrative choices she made in the later books. I hate the 5th and 6th books still, even though I think that they have good character elements and things that I definitely enjoy. Overall, I really don't like them as stories, and that's okay. And for me, a lot of what Harry Potter gave me was an expanded universe that I could help form in my own based upon what she's done. And I think even with Pottermore, there are things I like and things I'm like, I don't really need that in my life. I like what the fandom has done instead. And I think for me, because that's kind of where I am with Harry Potter, something like this is, to me, so innocuous. That being said, this is really poorly marketed and overpriced, and I think that unless you are like Harry Potter trash and you just have to read it and know what happened, you must in your spirit, you can't deal with it, then you can just skip this, because you can just wait till it comes out in paperback. You can even wait to see if it comes out on Broadway, because I know they're going to try and move it over here as soon as possible. But this, as much as I enjoyed it, is not worth $30, and that is the biggest slash against it in my opinion, because everything else I think is fine. It's allowed to have mistakes and not be perfect, but it being $30, that's insanity to me. And that's, in my opinion, the biggest fault against it. Like, this should not be $30. There's nothing in here that's $30 worth. It's just words. It's not even images. You don't even get, like, cool art like you do in the regular books. Like, this is not that. It's not written by J.K. Rowling. It's fun, light Harry Potter entertainment. I had my fangirl squeals, and I'll get to that in the spoiler territory. And I love that she gave my little Hermione trash, and I was like, thank you, J.K. Rowling. You know, I'm not a Ron fan, so I don't mind that he had a minor role. In fact, I was kind of like, oh yes, no Ron. No Ron. And even though I don't like Ron and Hermione still get to be cute together and do their little things. Like, everyone gets to shine in their little pockets, whether it be a dialogue thing, whether it be a flirty thing. It's like, it tells a fun story. It's just being put out in the wrong way, if that makes any sense. And I feel like that's what disappoints me the most about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. It didn't have to be presented in such a disingenuous way, and it kind of ruins a little bit of what is actually a fun, cute story that I think will make a fun production. So, in my opinion, this is a 3 out of 5. Thank you very much for watching, and spoiler time now. I don't think Voldemort would want to have a child. And, okay, so Delphi Diggory is revealed to be Voldemort and Bellatrix's child. And I just don't, I don't like the idea of them canonizing Bellatrix's relationship with Voldemort to be a sexual one. I think that I like Bellatrix being obsessive with Voldemort and just being like a ride or die for the cause, and like that's my man in a platonic admirational sense. I don't want it to be in canon that she's in love with him and they have intercourse, if you get what I'm saying. In fandom, totally cool with that. In IRL canon, I just don't think that works for me. It doesn't work for me. And also, they said she gave birth before the Battle of Hogwarts, but she was out there killing and riding or dying for Voldemort. So I'm like, when were you pregnant? Because if you're pregnant with Voldemort's baby, wouldn't you be in a hole somewhere to make sure, like, if anything goes wrong, I got the heir Slytherin right here ready to go for the next person. And she's just out there doing whatever. Like, when was she pregnant? And we see her in book 6 and book 7, and and we know that she's out and about. So it's not like somewhere between there she gave birth, but when? And because she was still out and about. It's kind of clumsy to me, in my opinion, and that's one part of it. The other part is I don't think that Voldemort would want children. I don't think he's capable of love or having sex with people, because I just don't think it's in him to do that. I think he can be seductive and charming even, I guess, but I don't think he is a sexual person. And I definitely don't think he would want to have a child. I think that he would be like, you need to flush, bam, bam, pew, pew, to quote Sextina Aquafina. Children are there to carry on your legacy. They're for mortal people. They're to carry on what you leave behind because we die. And for Voldemort, who wants to achieve immortality, a child is a vulnerability because that'd be something he'd be attached to that could be, used against him. They could want to rebel and get his shit. A child is just, that's a loose thread that you gotta cut. And I don't think he would want a child. I think if he found he had a child, but like I said, bam, bam, pew, pew. That makes sense too. The little brain is because they like Bellatrix loves Voldemort, but it's also a little bit like, did we have to make that like a thing that they did? And like, Voldemort having sex, guys, like, stop it. No, that was just so too much. Again, like even though it was so cliche and silly and kind of dumb, I totally got upset and sad when Harry was seeing his parents get killed. And I was just like, Harry, don't look, Harry, look. I've gone so back and forth with my feelings on Harry as I've read and reread the books, but I was so like, oh please, you little nugget, don't do this to yourself. It was just, and then the part where Albus talks to him like,
I was watching them and with you, and I think you guys would have been happy. And I was like, oh my god, I can't do it.
I just the father-son story, like, as I said, I'm upset there's no mother stuff in it as well, but like, that's my weakness. Like, father-child reconciliations in any, like that, child-parent relationship things, like that's why Lorelai and Emily is my favorite relationship on Gilmore Girls, because like every time they're like apart and then come back together, I'm just kind of like, like it's everything to me. So it hit every chord with me emotionally, and I know that if I saw this on stage, I would be like, why should you say this? I know myself, and myself is trash. And so, like, yeah, that was really the two biggest spoiler things that they mentioned, like, and then you get to see Snape die again. I was like, oh god, not again. And it was weird, but like fun at the same time. Although that was probably the most awkward part of like, I remember that part where like Voldemort take over, like Harry Potter's still like, bitch, what? Girl, you better cut this shit out, because you get rid of Neville, shit gets real. And I was like, you know what? I believe it, because Neville is that gangster. I don't believe that Neville is that important. I'm like, you better believe it. She just told you. Don't mess with Neville. That's my boo. And like the Hermione part where like, I think I'm getting bossed around by Harry. I can't even say it. But the line where like Draco's like, I'm being bossed around by Hermione Granger and I kind of like it. And I was just like, trash. Such trash. I've been reading like so much fan fiction the last 3 days. Like my Harry Potter boner is like at maximum strength right now. It's so painful because I feel embarrassed to be like 24 and just like reading fan fiction in my room, just like But that's what this did. It really like reminded me like I really, really love this series, and I think I'm definitely gonna do a reread soon. And it's just I often go back and forth. I think I'll talk about this in the other Harry Potter video I do, of like, do we really need more Harry Potter? But this made me realize that like I said, no matter how much she puts out or how much I may agree with it or like it or not, I'm still going to enjoy Harry Potter. And no one's gonna ruin that shit for me. Like, unless she comes up and like endorses Trump and the KKK and does all kinds of bullshit, like, me and Joe ain't gonna be okay. I mean, that shit that she pulled with the Native Americans, that was not a good look, sis. I'm interested to see what she keeps putting out, but I think it's gonna be to the point where it's like, you either love it or you don't, and that's just the way it's gonna be. So, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Voldemort got a boner, had a child. What? Don't believe it. I don't believe Voldemort could have an erection. No, right?